Plant and tree placement can be so hard to figure out. Like, where do you start, especially when it's your front yard? Now, I know when you're looking at a front yard landscaping and you want it to be tropical, but you want it to fit the space without overwhelming, well, the space. This is a tropical formal front yard landscape, and I think it turned out so beautifully, so serene, so perfect. I want to share with you guys what it looks like and how we did it. So that way, if this is something that you like and you're like, hey, that is my style, that's what I'm looking for, then this is something that you can replicate in your very own garden. Before we jump in, please like and subscribe. You guys know that Bryce and I love putting out this content every single weekend, and we welcome you to the channel. But let's jump into this lovely garden. So starting off, what is tropical formal? What does that look like in a landscape? Because you guys know that if you see a lot of my backyard landscapes, it's the exact opposite. It's what I like to call tropical informal. That is more of that jungle vibe, that more organic look. It's more frond on frond on frond on plant, So you have almost like that jungle floor, and then you have layers popping up through it, and then the leaves and the plants touch. But tropical formal is usually the direction I like to go in with my front yard gardens. It's perfect for HOA communities, perfect for when you want that flair, but you don't want it to overrun the space. So this is a spot that I think did just that. You've got your layered palm trees, but when you go tropical informal, what's just as important as your palms is the drifts of plants that you choose for the area. The drifts of plants coming in and out, and then the accents that create that softness, that still keep that tropical vibe. And that's what we did here today. So even though that we're talking about a formal garden, we're talking about more of the lower landscaping area, you want to make sure that you still incorporate those structure features, those elements in the garden that give you columns. And in this particular case, we took out what was currently here, which was in the previous builder's package. Just, it was just kind of a random placement of plants and trees very, very close to the house. This time, we brought things further out and really branched out, gave us some nice anchor features with some queen palms here in the front. And then, of course, two of my favorite palm trees are the regular Alexander palms. There's some beautiful triples right here that flank the front entrance of the house. And then we did a framing point of two additional queen palms on that side. Those are our fundamentals, our structure. So it's like a column here and columns on the corner. And that allows all of that stretch in the middle to give it more, to give it more of those drifts, more of those curvature, and bring in the color. This is a very full sun landscaping. We're actually baking out here today. So we were really able to open up and work with a lot of sun exposed, or a lot of plant material that loves that sun exposure. So right here, right behind our feature trees here, I wanted a green screen, a green wall to kind of soften it. And you could pick something blooming back here, like a ratamachera bush or a hibiscus wall or a copperleaf wall. All of those things will work if you're not a fan of the pygmy date palms, but I do love the way a pygmy date palm gives kind of a backdrop planting to the Alexander palm. I think that gives you still a very, very nice look. If you want it to be a tad bit more formal, working with a hedge behind here would work just the same. But I'm a frond girl, so I love the way fronds look in the garden. All right, so a backdrop, our rear tier, you can see we have a clustering of Sanchesia. This clustering of Sanchesia is going to be our backdrop height. These guys are going to get in that 4.5 foot range, clustered together to give a really, really soft leaf type of structure. They're going to mound out, really thicken up, and become right in line here to this pygmy date palm. Now, when I have a leaf like this, I want to go with something that's very contrasting. So what we have down below them is a nice sea of dwarf ixoras. These are Taiwanese ixoras. And I'd like to bring your attention to the curvature of how that works. Look at how these curve forward. These curve back and around. That's the drift that I was talking about. And our dwarf ixoras come like this, and then curve around and then stop. Then we've got a clustering of gold mound down below that does the opposite and curves this way. And that really gives us some lower layer interest. Now these are gonna get 1.5 feet, 2 foot tall. These dwarf ixoras are gonna get 2.5 to 3 foot tall at max. And then you've got something popping out of that that's going to be bigger. This is our break. This is the break in the landscaping, giving us something that's gonna get 4 to 5 foot, this false agave. This is kind of what brings back that tropical vibe into the landscape. And then another thing, now we want to contrast leaves because, there's not a lot of space here, and I know we want to keep it clean, but having something a bit jazzy on a empty wall is, to me, is just so ideal. I love the lady palms for that reason. They just offer such a beautiful leaf spread here, and it just, you can hear it when the wind blows. It's so gorgeous. And if you do landscape lighting at night, light this bad boy up with a wall light. It diffuses this whole palm tree, gives you a gorgeous shadow effect. One of my favorite palms to light at night just because of that reason. It's just such a stunner. So this is going to kind of fill in and kind of create more of an impact in between these two garage windows here. And of course, you guys know we're talking about the drifts and we're talking about the bushes here. That doesn't mean that you're not going to get those same layers that you get in a tropical informal design. A tropical formal design, you're still getting that layered effect where these gold mounds are going to be lower than these dwarf ixoras. These dwarf ixoras are going to be lower than these sanchisia. And then we have a benefit of a pop out on the front and the back side where it drops down yet again with the Blew My Minds. That's going to be such a beautiful layered in just maybe 6 months. It's all going to come together and really grow in together and give you those nice tight layers. And then we just did a nice repeat of that whole thing where we have the sanchisia here as the backdrop as our height. Then to the front, we've got a little clustering. It doesn't take much, but just a handful of 4 in a zigzag pattern right here to give you that kind of clustering of this coloration. And then got a little bit crazy. We want some low maintenance boulders in here. So we've got 3 boulders that we brought in. You can see these boulders are tilted forward with a little mounding soil behind them to kind of give this almost like a planter effect. Popped in a couple of whale's tongue agave right to the front with some blue glow agave just to kind of give us a little bit of interest. But I love the little touch of the blue agaves. And then these guys, if you're not familiar with the whale's tongue, you have to check them out because they're cute now, but when they mature in size, they're going to be the focal point of this garden. They don't get big like the desert agave, but they do mound out just big with this giant wide leaf. Going to be such a structure in the garden when it matures. And then of course, you know, the orange bird of paradise is going to get all the way up to 6 to 7 foot tall. So it'll be a focal point when this tree gets a little bit taller here. I did soften this back. This is where their pool area is. So having a little bit of height back here, I think is always important. Having a break looking to the backyard is nice. So we have 3 Brazilian red cloaks. They're still fairly young, but they're going to do the job in no time. But there'll be a back wall here that gives you a big pop of bloom. This is curving this way because I want it to almost hug the rear of the bed. So this is going to give you like a curved wall of that gorgeous, gorgeous pink flowering accent bush. I just think that's going to really soften the end, and just a couple split leaf philodendron to the front to soften this front corner. Well, hello gardeners. I wanted to pop in here for just a moment and then we will continue on with the tour. Now, I know I mentioned lighting once in a while in my videos, but I really wanted to focus on this particular video and share the lighting with you guys. Now, I feel like we found the best lighting company to work with. We've been using 702 lighting for years now on so many of the projects that we do, and I use it in my very own home, so I feel like I have a lot of really good experience, and most recently, we've partnered with them. So I'm really excited to share the link down below. If you guys are thinking about lighting for your project, then check into 702 lighting, because I've had so many clients incredibly satisfied with them, and I'm incredibly satisfied with them, and I absolutely love this product and love their support. When it comes to lighting, there's some key things that I'd love for you guys to kind of consider when you're ordering. Now, you can put spotlights on all of your lower accents, and that can work really, really nicely, but because we have so much material in here, I wanted to make sure that we got a nice bit of varied lighting. Right by this boulder collection, you'll notice that we did 2 downlights. Now, these downlights do a wonderful job of just giving a lower shadow effect, kind of just illuminating this whole area, giving you kind of a halo of light that hits from one corner of the accent feature to the other corner. And I really think that that comes across a lot better than just one spotlight that hits this bird of paradise, considering that we have one spotlight hitting this pygmy date palm directly behind it. I feel like that layered look is really going to make such a difference. So we have a pygmy date palm, and I know I've mentioned before in my videos, when it comes to pygmy date palms or any trees under about 12 foot tall that are going to grow below that 12 foot range, putting a 4 to 5 watt light bulb in there makes all the difference in the world. You want a shadow effect, but you just don't want something like a 7 watt on this little guy. What you want a 7 watt bulb on is something like these guys. These guys are going to get 30, 40 foot tall. So this is something you really want, a cascading light that's going to really open up on you. So having a spotlight of a 7 watt bulb on your your queen palms, on your royal palms, on your Alexander palms. That's the ideal thing to do. And that's what we have on all of these large specimen trees. Those Alexanders have the 7-watt bulbs. These pygmies have the 5-watt bulbs. And you'll notice for these small accents like agaves, now these are going to give you that big structural look in the garden, so you really want to showcase that. But because you have to put the light so close to this plant, what happens a lot of times, putting a spotlight, a regular spotlight on this, will give you like that, almost like that circular burn of light. You know, it'll give you where you just see one area real condensed. So if you can use a wall light, the wall lights come with 2 options, a clear lens and a diffuse lens. You can use that diffuse lens that really just kind of gives a shadow effect on this, and then use a nice 2-watt bulb on that, and it's just going to give you just enough. And you guys can kind of see how that's coming together. Not only do the plants and the trees get layered in the landscaping, but lighting layers is just as important. So when you're looking at the space, not everything is just direct spotlights, like it's real aggressive. Having a low light, a diffuse light, having some diffuse lights on the walls, having some spotlights on the trees, that's a way to go from hot points and then glows in areas that you want more of, like a shadow effect. And that's something I've learned over the years, and I think it's made all the difference in the world with lighting. You want a good lighting product, and then you want to use a layered lighting system. But as you can see, overall, it's a fairly easy process and pretty straightforward, but it makes all the difference in the world to use that layering, not only in your plants, but in your lighting. All right, let's get back to the video.
Right, you guys, I'm going to jump in here real quick. Mom just gave you some of the design details. I'm going to give you the spacing details. Let's go. So we're first going to speak on these dwarf ixoras. These are 3-gallon dwarf ixoras, and these are 2 feet apart on center in a zigzag pattern, in a drift formation. Same with these guys right here. So these are the gold mound. These are 2 feet on center. These are a 3-gallon plant right here. This is a 15-gallon false agave. And while it is a 15-gallon, it's still 2 feet on center. Normal 15-gallon plants are gonna have a little bit more width to it, but since this is more upright, you can plant plants a little closer to it. This is a 14-foot King Alexander palm. And for these palms, you're generally gonna wanna be around 3 feet away. So from the center of this palm to the center of this dwarf ixora, this is 3 foot away. And that's gonna carry on for the other planting. So for those Blue My Minds, they're about 3 foot away as well. Now from the pygmy date palm to the King Alexander, that is gonna be around 4 foot on center. You usually wanna have those 4 or 5 foot apart from one another. It's okay if this canopy is gonna be a little bit touching this. It'll grow out and wrap around it. And that's kind of the goal, for it to hug this and give it more of a softer look. This is kind of hard. These fronds are gonna soften that up a little bit. So now we're gonna go through the shrubbing materials. The ground cover 3-gallon size is about 2 feet on center. For the shrubbing material, same 3-gallon size, it's about 2.5 feet on center because it's gonna grow wider in diameter. So from this Sanchezia to this Sanchezia, 2.5 feet on center, same in a zigzag formation. Same with the lady palm right here. This is a 15-gallon. Since it's gonna grow a little bit wider, from the center of this to the center of that, that's about 4 feet. It's the same 15-gallon size as the false agave over there, but since it grows wider, we're gonna give it the room that it needs in order to grow out. And now to give yourself a little bit of spacing, from the house to the center of this lady palm is about 4 feet. Now, work with the space that you have. You can push this in, it's just gonna be touching the wall. We like to have a little bit of space, around 2 feet, in order to have more maintenance path behind here, so it's just easier to maintain. Now for the pygmy date palm, going to the center of this pygmy date palm to the house, it is about 6 feet away from the house, which is gonna be more than enough space that it needs, because it's gonna grow forward and out. Now these boulders are lengthwise right at 3 feet, and they are about 1.5 feet. And then moving over here to the Brazilian red cloaks, these are a 7-gallon size as well, and these are gonna bush out. So this is gonna be right at 3 feet, a little bit more spaced out than the Sanchezia, because these get a little bit more width. Same with the split leaf philodendrons. So this is gonna be 3 feet on center from one another. And things that you want to have like a little bit of a mound, you can go about 1.5 feet on center. That's completely fine. We were talking over there with that 3-gallon material being right at 2 feet, but we want it to have a little bit more space. We want this to combine and be one mound. So we put it around 1.5 feet.
Thank you for popping right in there, Bryce. His measurements are not my thing, so I always let him do all the math stuff. Right now, I really just kind of want to just showcase how beautiful this front entrance is. Now, if you guys have a similar framework on your house where you have those columns right in the middle, where you have that impact coming up right to the front door, replicating that with your landscaping really does add that custom approach. Having something pretty dynamic, having something really interesting, whether it's Alexanders or foxtails or royal palms, whatever it is, but make that oomph right on either side of the driveway to give yourself that additional kind of column feel. It almost gives you almost that estate-like vibe when you're coming up the driveway. I love these Alexanders. My favorite variety of Alexander to use are the ones I can find that have these big, giant, wide kind of trunks. I just feel like they scream tropical when they bow out like this. More commonly, they're found more upright, but these guys have been field grown, so they really do have that width and that spread to them. If you've picked up a triple and you love this look and your triple happens to be a little bit more upright and it's still pretty young, you can put like a ball in here, a big pot in here, anything that's going to kind of push them out because they're naturally going to grow away from structures. That's why I never worry about pygmy date palms being too close to the house, because their natural need, like this one over here, is to push and pull forward. So the same thing is going to happen with all your palm trees. All right, so now back to the plants. You can see how courteous these plants are to the trunk of this tree. If this were tropical informal, the fronds would be engulfing all in the base of this tree, and then so would the next layer, and so would the next layer, and that's more of that jungle vibe. But I know that these guys, these little dwarf Taiwanese ixoras, are going to completely behave and stay right where I put them. So they're going to get a little bit taller, but they're going to stay that structured feel. Now, in order to not have a hedge of these, you want to wrap them. So wherever you start, make sure you're curving it around whatever your feature tree is. And that's why these guys are so important, because if you don't have any feature trees in the garden and the landscaping, then you have no reason to curve around things. You just have wild curves, and that kind of doesn't make sense. But if you have accents, if you have palm trees, you get to curve in and out of those palm trees and in and out of those accents. That's why it's great to have as many accents that your landscaping can afford. That way you can, have room to play with it with your colorful plants down below. So your dwarf ixoras curve this way, your Blue My Minds curve right in this little area here, and then there's a break again like we have on the opposite side with the false agave, where the false agave is going to be that nice focal point framing this little boulder. And then to the back of the pygmy date palm, we have the opposite curve going the opposite direction. So we have one starting forward of the pygmy date palm, wrapping all the way around the back side of it, really hugging that. And that's not at its beauty yet. That's going to come later. But when that happens, it's going to just be such a tropical feel. And you can tell the difference between the leaf pattern and structure. That's very loose fitting. The ixoras and the Blue My Minds are very formal, very tight. So that contrast really plays well together. And then to add a little bit more contrast, we've got the boulder with a handful of foxtail ferns right here. 2 split leaf philodendron to match the opposite side, and a beautiful lady palm to anchor this corner. This not only camouflages the little pop out of the driveway, but it gives just a little punch, a little backdrop from the street to the palm tree, and I love the way that works. Now, we pretty much ran out of room. We had to stay really tiny right here, so we just have a little handful of dwarf Nana Calusia, and they're going to stay nice and compact as probably the only thing that's going to give us more of that hedge vibe. And then right here, we softened it with some beautiful Java white copper leaves. I mean, we got 4 of them in this little area right here. That's all you need. They're going to mound up and become a nice backdrop. You guys know it's on the corners of the house. I really love to pull it out, really kind of give that big material, tall material on the edges of the home. That's exactly what we use, these Brazilian red cloaks right here. For this section, less is more. We've got 2 wall lights shining on these walls at night that give this whole area a nice diffused look, and then just some foxtail ferns down below, just a little bit of texture. Right here in this corner, she had an empty pot, so when it empty pot calls to me, it calls like something dark green and really interesting and controllable in this area, and that Radimanchera is just doing the trick right there. Nice dark green with white blooms along this nice neutral color palette of the house with the white trimming. I just think that's going to go together so well. And it has that little bit of fragrance. So anytime you have a little bit of fragrance next to the door, I think that's just kind of a bonus. Right down below, these are not in bloom yet, but these are the Maui, the dwarf yellow ixoras. And I think they do a nice job of being a little controlled planting and give a little pop of color. So I think they're ideal for that. You can tell that we've really pared it back when it comes back to the front door. We've got a little bit more going on here. We've got more layers, more interest. But when you have a small planter, Don't over landscape the planters. I know that can be hard because you feel like it's got to match the rest of the garden, but that's where you show restraint because you just don't want to overdo the landscaping there, and you don't want that maintenance involved with that. Looks like we're going to get rained out, you guys. We get to beat the heat at least. So we will see you in next week's garden tour. Thank you so much. Take care.